why am I reading these books? Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the books that I read in January. There's still 1.5 days left in January when I'm filming this, so I am planning on finishing one more book before February. I have read 10 books in January, and out of those 10, I have only read 3 physical books and the rest on my Kindle. I love reading on my Kindle, and I'm not good at reading my physical TBR, so oops. I read a total of 4,936 pages this month, and if I finish yet another book, I will probably reach 5,000 pages, which is pretty good for a month. So let's start with the first book that I read in January. The first book that I read in January was Royal Blood by Amy Carter. Let me read you the blurb. As the King of England's illegitimate daughter, 17-year-old Evan Bright knows a thing or two about keeping secrets. But when she is forced to spend the summer in London with her father and the royal family, who aren't exactly thrilled that she exists, her identity is mysteriously revealed, and suddenly the world is dying to know every juicy lie the press prints about her. After a fun night turns deadly and Evan becomes the primary suspect in a murder investigation, the escalating rumors and fallout threaten to tear her life apart. As she fights to uncover the truth about what happened, she discovers royal secrets that are even more scandalous than she imagined. Secrets that can change the monarchy forever. Okay, so I'm a sucker for YA thrillers, and this is exactly a YA thriller. But not only that, it's about the British monarchy. So it's a British monarchy plus YA thriller, which is perfect. I started to read this book on January 1st and I finished it on January 1st. This was so good. I gave it 3.5 stars and I had so much fun reading. So if you're a YA thriller fan as myself and a tiny bit obsessed with the British monarchy, you should definitely read this book. And not only did I read Royal Blood, I also read the sequel, which is Royal Scandal. I won't read the entire blurb for this one without spoiling the entirety of book 1. All I'm gonna say about this book is that I gave it 4 stars, 4.5 maybe, and I love this book even more than the first one. This one had a little bit more action, and I need action. It can't be boring, not a YA thriller. And I felt that a lot more was at stake in this book. It wasn't innocent jokes or innocent murders. I don't know. A lot could go wrong, so I enjoyed this. The thing that I did not enjoy, and I need to warn everyone about this is book 2, and I thought this was a duology. It is not. It's a trilogy, as far as I know. And book 2 ends on, I don't want to spoil anything, but I was mad. I was mad when I found out that it was a third book, which is not even announced yet. I was mad. That's all I'm gonna say. The third book of January was Brain Damage by Frida McFadden. I love Frida McFadden and I love all her books, mostly. They're so easy to read, they're exciting, and I have read almost every single one. I think I have only 2 books left, and one of them is the most recent one, The Crash. And I had forgotten about Brain Damage, and the only reason I read it was because it has just been translated into Norwegian, and so I had to read it, of course. Let's do the blurb. After years of hard work, Dr. Charlie McKenna finally has it all. Prosperous career as a dermatologist, check. Spacious apartment overlooking Central Park, check. Handsome lawyer husband, double check. Then one night, a bullet rips through the right side of her skull and she loses everything. As Charlie struggles to recover from her brain injury, she begins to realize that events of the fateful night are trapped in the damaged right side of her brain. Now she must put the jigsaw pieces together to discover the identity of the man who tried to kill her before he finishes the job he started. This sounds thrilling, right? Well, it's not. I rarely give books lower than 3 stars, but this was a 2-star, maybe 1.5 star for me. I was bored, and I'm never bored reading Frida McFadden. Never. Even though the book is bad, I'm never bored, but I was bored in this book. And from the blurb, you know that the main character is shot in the head, and that causes a brain damage, hence the title. And so she's at this facility trying to build herself up because she can't eat, she can't talk, she can't nothing, so she has to learn everything from scratch. This book is basically just that. We follow her everyday life at that facility, trying to learn how to talk, and that's about it. We have two different POVs. The one is present time, where she's at the facility after the brain damage, and the other POV is before she's shot. So then we follow her leading up to the incident, which isn't that much more exciting, honestly. And if I'm gonna recommend a Frida McFadden book, I'm never gonna recommend this one. Never. Then we have the first physical book of the month, which is Long Live Evil by Sarah Rees Brennan. The one thing that intrigued me the most about this book is that the main character wakes up in her favorite fantasy book, which is every book girl's dream. Let's take a moment to appreciate these edges. Amazing. A story for anyone who's ever fallen for the villain. When her whole life collapsed, Ray still had books. Dying, she seizes a second chance at living, a magical bargain that lets her enter the world of her favorite fantasy series. I'm hooked. I'm already hooked. She wakes in a castle on the edge of a hellish chasm in a kingdom on the brink of war. Home to dangerous monsters, scheming courtiers, and her favorite fictional character, the once and forever Emperor. He is impossibly alluring as only fiction can be, and in this fantasy world, she discovers she's not the hero, but the villainess in the Emperor's tale. So be it, the wicked are better dressed, with better one-liners, even if they're doomed to bad ends. She assembles the wildly disparate villains of the story under her evil leadership, plotting to change their fate. But as the body count rises and the Emperor's fury increases, it seems Rey and her allies may not survive to the final page. How fantastic doesn't that sound? It took a while for me to read this book because it was kind of hard to get into. The thing about fantasy books is there's a lot of world building, and in this one she's thrown into a fantasy book where the world building is already done. The characters are already known, but not to us. So there's a lot of name dropping. I don't know who anyone is. I have no idea what history they have with the character, the main character in this one. We are totally in the dark. I ended up liking this book and I gave it 3.5 stars, but I know a lot of other people hate this book, and a lot of the reason is the world building, because there's no world building. The world building is already done before our main character is thrown into the book. The main character is thrown into the book at the very end of the book. I don't know how many chapters are left, but it is the end, and so she has to change her fate because at the end of the book she is dying. Not this book, but the book she's thrown into, and so she needs to change her fate, basically. As I said, it took a while before I was engaged in this book. There was a lot of great characters, and there will be a second book. I thought this was a standalone, to be honest, but there will be a second book, and I think the second book will be really good because now we kind of have a world building in this one, and so I'm very excited for the second book. Honestly, I'm not sure if you're gonna like it, but I love the characters in this when I got to know them, and that's what convinced me of continue to reading this book. Then we have another Kindle book, and this is not just a Kindle book, this is an advanced reader copy Kindle book. This is All Shall Mourn by Ellie Marney. I mentioned this book in my 2025 most anticipated releases, and I loved it. I gave it 5 stars, and it was one of the easiest 5 stars I've ever given. If you don't remember or didn't watch my 2025 most anticipated releases, I'm gonna give you a quick summary of what this book is about. Basically, this is the third and last book in the YA thriller series. The series follows Emma and Travis, who's recruited into the FBI to work on teenage serial killers, basically, and how to profile them. And for their research and to build their profile on teen serial killers, they meet Simon Gutmanson, and he's one of the worst teen serial killers to date in this book. That's about it. We follow all 3 of them throughout all 3 books. And even though it's a YA thriller, it's pretty grotesque. And the 3rd book especially had such graphic details about awful things, and I loved it. If you're going into this book thinking, oh, it's YA, it's not that graphic, well, it is. It is graphic, very graphic. I recommend everyone to read this series. This book comes out February 9th, so when this book finally comes out, go buy all 3 and read them back to back, please. I can't recommend them enough. Then we have Heat of the Everflame by Pen Cole. This is the 3rd book in the Kindred's Curse series, where the first book is Spark of the Everflame. You probably heard of it. This book is a whopping 1026 pages long. 1026 pages long. I probably started this book in November and I finished it now in January. It was so long, and I read longer books, which is Zodiac Academy, and so I'm used to long books, but this one was crazy. I gave it 5 stars though, so it wasn't bad. I really enjoyed this book, and even though it was over 1,000 pages long, something happened all the time. We were introduced to new things all the time. New places, new people, new creatures, and overall it was an amazing read, and I can't wait for the 4th book to come out, which hopefully will be this year. 5 stars. 5 stars all the way. Then we have another physical book. This is Starsight by Brandon Sanderson, and this is book 2 in the Skyward series. The rest of them is here, and I'm gonna read them all this spring. I loved the first book and I was so excited to read this one, and it did not disappoint. It was such an incredible experience. The world building and everything was perfect. It was top notch. And just to summarize real quick without any spoilers, Spensa, the main character, is stranded on an alien planet, and so we get to see all the world building around that planet. And this planet was kind of a capital, maybe, in the universe, and so a lot of different aliens and different creatures were gathered on this planet, so we were able to meet a lot of different types of characters. One of the characters is literally a smell. She's a smell. Can't see her, you can't feel her, you can only smell her. Or it's not even a her. I don't think they have a gender, honestly. You can only smell them. Who makes that up? Who can make that up? It's crazy to have imagination like that. And to mention yet another character, it's just so interesting. You gotta read it to understand it. As you can tell from my excitement, this was a 5-star read, and I'm sure the other books are 5-star reads as well, which is crazy to me because sci-fi, how can sci-fi be 5 stars? I never thought that I would give sci-fi 5 stars. Then we have another arc, which is Spiral by Balcabra. This is in an interconnected series where Collide is the first book and it's hockey romances. Let's get to the blurb. Elias Westbrook, a newly drafted hockey player for the Toronto Thunder, is facing the challenges of fame and media scrutiny. The tabloids are reporting on his every move, including which woman he has last been seen with, but all he wants to do is to escape the spotlight. Enter from stage left Sage Beaumont, an aspiring ballerina whose lack of popularity online has put her at major disadvantage for securing the roles she dreams of. When Sage finds herself with the chance to change her luck by fake dating Elias, she takes her shot. Soon enough, the flimsy rules they set in place fall away, but before things can spiral out of control, Sage and Elias will have to decide if they're willing to take the leap together or if they'll have to call it quits. So this is a hockey player and a ballerina. Just telling me that makes me fall in love with this book. I gave this book 4 stars, maybe it's 4.5, but I really enjoyed this book. I know a lot of you guys hate when Instagram, TikTok and stuff like that is mentioned in books, which it is in this one because of course he's a social media star or a tabloid star, but it really worked in this one and I enjoyed it. I don't have anything against TikTok and Instagram being mentioned in books. I felt that this book captured me from the very first chapter, which begins with Elias and Sage meeting. From that very first chapter, I knew that I wanted to read more, and in romance books that's rare for me. I'm currently reading Deep End by Hazelwood and I can't get into it. I am bored from the first page. I'm bored. It needs to have that little extra spice for me to be captured all the way from the start. So I do recommend Spiral. I also recommend Collide, which is the first book in the series, following one of Elias's roommates and teammates. It's also included in this book. You don't have to read Collide in order to read Spiral, but you should because they're both good. Then we have the last physical book of the month, which is Onyx by Rebecca Yarros. And this is also the Waterstones exclusive edition, so it has pretty sprayed edges. I gave this book 4.5 stars, but I've seen people give this 2 stars or even 1 stars. Some people have even DNF'd it, even if they've loved the first 2 books. I can understand them, but to me it's wild, because this was one of the best books in the series. When I post this, the book has been out for almost 2 weeks, but I still don't want to talk that much about it because there's so many people who haven't read it yet, and I don't want to accidentally spoil anything. But what a lot of people didn't like in this one is that they travel a lot, and so you're introduced to brand new world building, which to a lot of people shouldn't be in the 3rd book in the series. I like to see other parts of this world, and there's so many good parts in here, and I can't say what parts were good in this one without spoiling. I think that I'm gonna post a full YouTube review on this one sometime in February, but this was 4.5 stars for me. In the review I'm gonna tell you why it ain't 5 stars. Then we have the so far last book of January, which is Barbarians, made by Ruby Dixon. I am doing a reread of the series with some friends, and I'm having so much fun. You can't read this series taking everything you read seriously, then you won't enjoy them. These books are crazy, they are weird, and they're fun as hell. If you haven't heard of the Ice Planet Barbarian series, I'm gonna sum it up real quick. A lot of human women are abducted from our planet Earth, and on their way to this alien planet, their ship crashes. And so their ship crashes into this planet, which they call not hot because it's cold. So it's not hot. It's probably called something else. When this ship crashes, all the aliens inside are dead, but the women survive. When they land, they have to find shelter, warm clothes and everything so they don't freeze to death. So one woman volunteers to go search the planet to see if she can find anyone who can help and see if she can find water, food, etc. Well, she meets a blue alien whose first instinct is to go down on her, basically. It sounds so weird. Why am I reading these books? But yeah, they're corn, alien corn, basically. But they're very entertaining, and some of them have great storylines. They have great characters with real trauma, of course. They've been abducted by aliens, of course they have trauma. I really enjoy them, and we are now on Barbarian's Mate, which is the 6th book, and in a few weeks we're gonna read the 7th book, and I think there's a total of 22 books in this series, and I've only read until book 12 earlier, so I'm excited to finally finish this series. I gave this book 3 stars, by the way. And that was all the books that I read in January. And as I said in the beginning, I'm currently reading Deep End, and I want to finish Deep End before January is over. So if I finish Deep End, I'm gonna put it right here with my rating. If there's nothing in this space, I didn't finish Deep End. My average ratings of this month was 3.95, which isn't that bad, but Brain Damage dragged this average rating down. And I am very excited for February to finally begin, because January has lasted 4 months already. I just want to start on my February TBR right now, preferably. And with that, I want to say thank you for watching this video yet again, and I'm still amazed that I'm able to keep up this YouTube thing and post every week. Then I see you guys next week, hopefully. Bye.